afternoon, I'll be standing for as long as the battery of my microphone works, and after that I will sit down. I will talk about a specific community of Facebook users, and that is a family. When we say family, we may mean different things. Nowadays, these families sometimes make contact over internet. They move to a virtual world. Members of a family communicate over internet, and we have something like a community of a family. If we look at it closely, the thing we see clearly is the fact that communication changes very dynamically. It progresses. Direct communication, face-to-face communication, was the most beneficial from psychological point of view, but it is often replaced by indirect communication. In the past, we used to write letters. Now we've got internet, emails, and Facebook. I'm sure I do not have a lot of time to speak to you, so please let me know if I speak for too long. So, internet communication is something you've got explained on the slide. But communication amongst family is somewhat different. On Facebook, we are no longer anonymous. Once we have a Facebook profile with our own name, we are not anonymous anymore, or so it seems. And then we have visual elements such as photographs. So we see people, we see what they look like. During my interviews, during my research, I asked, how are you sure that this teenager from the US is really a teenager? And the girl said, I'm sure he's a teenager. And I said, well, how are you sure? You've never seen this person. And the response is, well, he's got a photograph on his Facebook profile. I wouldn't be so sure. People feel safe and secure because they check something, but they're not aware of the fact that this is not necessarily true, what they see on Facebook. One of the reasons why we started our research on Facebook and family was an American study published in 2013 saying that 91% of Americans have their relatives on Facebook, 70% have brothers and sisters, and 70% of teenagers have their parents as their Facebook friends. This is why we decided to check how this is in Poland in order to know what could happen in the next few years in Poland too. The tendency in the US is for young people to leave Facebook, to use Twitter. And why are they induced to leave Facebook and to use other networks? Well, young people no longer feel safe, no longer feel uncontrolled. Parents, adults use Facebook to a great extent. They can see their profiles, they can see their posts. So young people are looking for communication profiles in order to isolate themselves from adult world. And we wanted to see how things are in Poland and how this will go on in the future. So I asked myself a question: to what extent Facebook users have their family members and relatives as Facebook friends? Why are they using Facebook to communicate with their family and relatives? What activities indicated by literature and conducted on Facebook are relevant for contacts among family members or with relatives, and to what extent people who have their family and relatives as their Facebook friends are prone to be addicted to the internet. Moving on very quickly, I would like to say that the group of our respondents were middle secondary school students between 13 and 16 years of age. We used focus groups, and we gave a questionnaire to someone who then forwarded to someone else, my experience shows that if children work on a questionnaire in a classroom, they tend to leave half of the fields empty, or they just give random replies. This is why I used a method that ensured more credible results, more credible information. If we talk about the number of Facebook friends, it turns out that 67% of young users have a family member as a friend. Others used to have, that's 29%, but no longer have their parents as Facebook friends. And having a parent as a Facebook friend is not something to boast. And they delete their friends, as other teenagers say, well, this is really not so uncool to have your parent as your Facebook friend. There were practices that parents set up Facebook accounts for children, and then children, as they grew up or as they grew older, deleted or removed their parents as Facebook friends. This process is no longer, it's not yet taking place in Poland. Young people are still resisting having their parents as their Facebook friends. And if we look at the age structure, 56% of boys and 75% of girls. So girls are more prone to accept family members and relatives as their Facebook friends. Amongst those who have their family members and relatives as Facebook friends, 10%, and that is every 10th person in such a profile is a member of family or relative. And if we were to go into more detail, asking what family members or what relatives are their Facebook friends and what activities are performed together or with participation of the family, and you can see in the bottom that no one had a father as their Facebook friend. Our in-depth interviews show that dads or fathers are not on Facebook. I'm not sure if this is a fault, but this is a competency of mothers rather than fathers to want to know what their children do on Facebook. And maybe mothers are more often Facebook users. And in more than 200 interviews, only 8 people indicated that they have a mother as a Facebook friend. So it is really uncool to have a parent as your Facebook friend. So if you have family members or relatives as your Facebook friends, these are usually people from your generation, brothers, sisters, cousins, second cousins, and so on and so forth. So Facebook is open to family members, but mainly for the same generation. And if we talk about the older generation, it is sort of cut off. And aunts and uncles would usually be aunts and uncles who live abroad and could potentially invite a young person for holidays, for example. So usually this is amongst the same generation. Looking at the types of activities and the number of activities with the participation of family and relatives, the greatest scopes of activities is likes. This doesn't cost anything. This is something you do very briefly. You like a photo or a post, and it does not have any emotional meaning. You simply indicate that you accept something that has appeared on Facebook.
And I'm talking about the areas which young persons have. For example, manipulating the senses or emotions. For example, it turns out that in in-depth interviews, we got the information that we are very keen on how we are perceived by others, but sometimes, or very often, whenever we say that we are keen on how others perceive us, we are also keen on how the family sees us. So it is interconnected. And we sometimes want to show that I'm much more liked by my peers than in reality. And it pertains not only to the friends, but also to family members. Then we have this activity, the so-called social review. And one of the citations, instead of talking to her, I review her profile. It is faster to communicate with a member of family by viewing the profile than making a phone call. The study were much wider than earlier, and it seems that Facebook continues to be on all the time, no matter what I do. So we can say this is yet another family member, be it a digital family member. We cannot say how much time we spend on Facebook. However, it is present with us pretty much all the time, just like a TV, which is on 24 hours a day, an additional member of family. Now, the social searches, does it happen in case of a family member? Or what are the reasons that they searched? It was an open question. And I started to search for my family members. Half of it was not present on the Facebook. So probably some members of the family are camouflaging their identities. In search of the information, what they are doing right now, Facebook gives you a real-time information. Never before the youth were attaching so much importance to that. Right now, one of the profiles features it. So very quickly, whatever happens in the life of young persons, it is published on the Facebook. And young persons need it instantaneously. They will not wait till the next day, but they need to do it right now in order to see how many and what kind of friends they have. And what is also really intriguing, to confront whether what the researchers know is adequate with the data in Facebook. We don't even believe the family, and we tend to check it on Facebook and in reality. And there is one more aspect of communication or activity is a communication with family. 90% of surveyed do Facebook for communication. What are the reasons? In yellow you see the family, and all the acquaintances and friends are blue. And take a look at the cases where yellow exceeds the blue. Too big a distance to meet directly, and the second, these persons are living abroad. And these are the main reasons which are a different situation than in the cases where this proportion is reverse. If we take a look at the origins of the contact between family members in Facebook, we usually had three elements. First of all, the family found me and invited me to be their friend. 70%. I found and invited a family member to my friends. It was 1/4. All the family members joined my circle of friends. It was not clear whether they were invited themselves or not. Do I still have time? 2 minutes. Additionally, we had these claims which were to show when we were saying that Facebook is used for family contacts, young persons would say that this is not the place where one should communicate with family. The girls would say that they prefer direct contacts because then they can feel the link. The indirect contacts should be used only in emergencies, when I cannot reach them in person. The boys which were surveyed were agreeing that they can contact with family to a larger degree they had nothing against it. It was okay for them. And the final question, which I presented, is there any difference in terms of the dependence on internet or addiction to internet? There are no important statistical differences between two populations. So I did it for the whole population, the level of addiction. This is breakdown by percentage point. 2% show some pathological use of internet, 1 of boys and 3 of girls. Why do I focus on that? Usually we have higher reading among boys than girls. Here, in terms of social media, the girls are higher, so worse. And to summarize, I would like to refer to the idea of Professor Bauman. Today, a person or a relation with another person is like a transaction in the supermarket. If something goes wrong, this person is replaced. And these family relations are becoming tantamount to a transaction in a supermarket. So Facebook gives you an opportunity to keep up the relationship if it's satisfactory, but it can be easily cancelled if you are not happy with that. So we can pretty much cancel our parents from the profile or get rid of the contact. In case of the family which is living remotely, they are not going to come knocking at our door and complain about it. And with that, I would like to finish. On one of the profiles, I found a slogan that you do not choose that you don't choose a family on the Facebook. Well, I won't comment on that. I encourage you to contact. Please use email. I am carrying out various studies. If you are interested in cooperation or to conduct a given type of survey in your school, I'll be happy to assist you and be glad to talk about it.